People ask me all the time, how do you have like 8 companies all running? And it's because you start by putting together the right team. The first thing to keep in mind is this is the greatest time in history to be an entrepreneur. You've got to get the leads first and then discover the other problems that are downstream. So you've got to move across to selling intellectual property, media and software that essentially can scale anywhere.
What are the best ways for generating leads and obviously qualifying them so that you can sell these leads?
Steve Jobs went up against IBM and beat IBM at their own game by adding a personal brand to it. Everyone fell in love with Steve Jobs and his way of thinking, and that's why they switched across to Apple. So personal brands are everything. I started with 3 people, and I put my team together, and we launched, and we did 1.3 million in the first year working together. The entrepreneurial success story is the journey of 1,000 pitches. There is no great business that came into existence where the founder didn't pitch it 1,000 times. So you've got to get good at pitching. The idea that you're not going to have something to do after you've exited. I've exited several businesses. There's always something to do. It is never a problem that you don't have stuff to do.
And welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. Today, I have got you an awesome guest, a man whose books, I've read 2 of his books, Key Person of Influence and Oversubscribed. He's an absolute weapon of an entrepreneur in the space, obviously building multiple companies, scale them to north of $1 million a month. Daniel Priestley, welcome to the podcast.
Mate, how did I get so lucky to be on your podcast?
Mate, I was thinking the same thing about you. I think you're the reward for me working hard. But mate, I just want to kind of, obviously I've read both of those books, Daniel, and I know you've got a lot of other books in the space that help entrepreneurs scale their business, grow more leads, get more leads, and all that kind of stuff. I think we're going to touch on all of that throughout this podcast. But one of the key, I want to give people an understanding of your journey, because obviously your journey started off in Australia, growing someone else's business, and then you pivoted and had to leave Australia and come to the UK and start again, essentially.
I didn't have to leave Australia. I just want to be clear. The way you said that sounded like I was like on the run.
You were. He's lying. No, I'm joking. He wasn't on the run. He wasn't on the run. But if you could just give a bit of a key context into your starting of your journey, because I think it really builds from there.
Yeah, I've always thought of myself as very entrepreneurial. As a teenager, I ran nightclub parties. I sold roses door to door on Valentine's Day. I ran garage sales with my neighbors and sold stuff. Like, I was just totally geeking out on that stuff. Age 15, I'm reading The E-Myth and Rich Dad Poor Dad and those kind of books. I'm listening to tape sets by Tony Robbins. And I'm just dreaming of one day I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I didn't have the word for it, but that was kind of like the plan. I wanted to build businesses and all that sort of stuff. Age 19, I get a mentor. I go and work in a startup. My mentor's startup just took off. I was employee number 2 or 3. We ended up with 60 people at the end of the year and about 6 million of revenue. And I got the opportunity to throw myself into marketing, into sales, into a little bit of like P&L and finance and all of that sort of stuff. And at the end of 2 years working for my mentor, he basically said to me that it was time for me to go and start my own business. And I went off and started my own company. And at age 21, launched a business, and it just took off. We went from 0 to $1 million in the first year, or 1.3 million in year 1. I got up to 10.7 million by age 24. And yeah, just had this kind of like really fast start to business.
What was the key thing then, Daniel, that allowed you, because obviously you're with your mentor for a couple of years, what was the key thing that he taught you that allowed you to go from 0 to 1.3 million in that short space of time? What was the key metric there?
The key thing is lead generation. So essentially, he had a saying which was everything's downstream from lead generation. And if you can pile the leads into a business, a couple of things happen. Number one, you get demand and supply tension, right? So whatever it is you're selling, if there's lots of people coming in on the lead gen, you've got plenty of just tension, people wanting to buy from you. Second thing that happens is that if you're at all smart about it and you can collect any data on the people, you can score the leads, or you can do segmentation. So data enrichment leads to data segmentation. If you can do data segmentation, you can then choose the best leads. You can actually be making sure that you're selling to the right people. And the other thing that happens is you don't have to do any discounting because you've got so many leads coming in. So you very rarely have to charge a reduced price, which means you become profitable. So this is 21 years ago. So the thing that he taught me was predominantly newspaper advertising. So I got really good at writing newspaper advertising content, headlines, all of that sort of stuff. This was back in the day that a quarter page ad was about $7,000 or $8,000. We used to run an ad every week, generate a ton of leads, and then make sales. So it was just essentially the cornerstone skill has been lead generation, and that's that's one of the things for building a successful business, I guess.
I think one of the things as well, Daniel, that a lot of people get wrong is they test a small group of people. So like you talking about like newspaper lead generation and other forms of lead generation like that. People like if they were doing leaflets and stuff like that, which people have done in the past and people do successfully even now to this day, it's like they're testing too small a batch or too smaller newspapers to get the results they want. So is there a set amount of amount of kind of is there a minimum viable test basis that you test this on to make sure it works?
Yeah, look, I'm going to say a few things on that. The first one is if you imagine a rocket that's perfectly built, beautifully engineered, but you just don't put enough fuel in the rocket, it's not going to get off the ground. And sometimes people have a beautifully built business, but they just don't put it in front of enough people, right? So they're not running enough ads, or they're not doing enough of the minimum effective dose that is required to get their business to take off. So I see that all the time, and they're tinkering with their business and they're trying to like fix a rivet here and put a hose in there and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, hey, the business itself is great. You're just not putting it in front of enough people. You don't have a big enough audience. So essentially that happens, and that's a really important point that you make about minimal effective dose. So if you're going to test anything in statistics, there is a couple of what's called statistically significant milestones. The first one is a sample size of 30 and then a sample size of 150. So, for example, I would never say that an ad works or doesn't work unless, at a very basic level, unless I've had 30 clicks of the ad and I can see how much traffic or how much spend we had to do to get 30 clicks. Next level up and a much better level is 150 clicks. So if I'm going to run, if I'm going to do a test budget, I'm going to run enough of a budget to get 150 people clicking through that ad, because that's really the minimum that it's going to take for me to know whether that scales or not. There's another big mistake that people make, and they think that success and failure is about percentage conversions. And it's not. It's cost per sale. Let's say I ran an ad and I was getting £2 leads, but only 1% of those leads convert, right? So it cost me £200 to get one sale. But let's say that sale is £1,000, right? So it's now costing me a couple of £100 to get £1,000. So the real question is that a allowable cost? Is that a viable cost? So a lot of people go, 99 out of 100 people are not working, are not buying. I'll give you some real numbers. I have a business that is wildly successful, and we generate 63 leads for every sale. And it costs about £500 to £600 to generate those 63 leads, about £8 or £9 per lead. However, that works out at on average, £1,000 sale. So, it's about 8 or 9% of revenue goes into the ads in order to, we spend, a few £100, we make a few £1,000. So it's totally viable. Now, some people look at it and go, oh my goodness, 62 out of 63 people aren't buying from you. Right? That's totally fine. That's not a problem. It really comes down to the allowable cost per sale.
I love that, because you've essentially just said there in no uncertain terms that it doesn't matter what stage your business is at and where you're at all. It's essentially like just simply fire more leads into that business so that you have more choice and you are able to sell them something. You
might have other problems, but everything's downstream from lead generation. So if your problem, if you've got a perfectly built business and you don't fire enough leads at it, it doesn't matter how great the business is. It really doesn't matter. You could be best in the world at what you do. If you're just not firing enough leads down into that business, It doesn't matter. Now, you may fire thousands of leads down to the business, and you've got lots of lead generation. You might then have a sales conversion problem. You might then have a product problem. You might then have a customer servicing problem. Those problems could come later, but it's really, you've got to discover those problems through the interaction with customers. You've got to get the leads first and then discover the other problems that are downstream.
And also the other problems that you speak of also happen after the sale, and then you have the money to solve the problem that you now have in your business. So really then the key thing is generate more leads, sell more deals, and then everything, like you say, is downstream from that, and you know, everyone's business. So the next question is like, what are the best ways that you know right now? I know we can't go business specific, but what are the best ways for generating leads and obviously qualifying them so that you can sell these leads?
So there's a few. Let me run through them, and I'll finish with my favorite. So the first one is join a waiting list. Joining waiting lists for a new product or a new product innovation or a product update, really great strategy. You should never be launching a product straight from basically straight into the marketplace. You should always be doing join a wait list first. Look at Elon Musk. He never just says, hey, do you want a Cybertruck? He says, we're going to do Cybertruck. Do you want to join the waiting list for Cybertruck? So join the wait list is an awesome lead generator. Number two would be attend an event. Introduction event. So an introduction event is where you invite people to come along to an introductory event. Let's say you're a fitness trainer, an introduction to weight loss, an introduction to building bigger muscles, an introduction to eating right, eating correctly. So all of those are just introduction events. And if someone's attending one of those, that's a very good, solid lead. Number three is a WhatsApp group. So you would actually create a pop-up WhatsApp group. Sometimes you can do a 5-day WhatsApp group where you do, we're doing a 5-day special on having a breakthrough for X. So maybe you run an agency that does branding, a 5-day branding breakthrough. So join the WhatsApp group and we're going to talk about it for 5 days. Or you could do it open-ended, which is just purely and simply, we've got a special WhatsApp group for marketing managers. Come and join the WhatsApp group. So that can be a really great one as well. The big one, the most exciting one, is quizzes, scorecards, assessments. So a quiz, scorecard, assessment, a little bit different to a survey. A survey, people answer questions and then it says, thanks for answering the question. It's a real one-sided interaction. People just answer questions to help someone's business. A quiz or an assessment is where you answer all those questions in exchange for an immediate result. So let's say I take a quiz called, are you ready to run the marathon? Right? Are you ready to run a marathon? I answer 15 questions and it says you are 72% ready. Here's the things you need to do to get 100% ready. Now that's of value. If I want to run a marathon, that's very valuable. I will answer the questions in order to get that assessment. I'll get that specific information back for me. Now that is a very, very strong lead because I've got name, I've got email, I've got 15, 20 different bits of information about the person. I know geographically where they are because of IP address. All sorts of information comes pouring in when someone fills in an online assessment or an online quiz. People love quizzes, and it's not just teenagers who love quizzes. We've got quizzes and scorecards that go out to CEOs and executives and wealth managers and high net worths. Everyone loves a good quiz or assessment.
I was looking at your software the other day that does exactly this, and obviously you've built that and discovered that method. And I was kind of thinking through the numbers in my head of like, okay, well, if we did a reputation management assessment quiz on our website rather than just trying to remove content for argument's sake, I think that not only would the cost of acquisition of leads come down, but the results that we could give the clients would go up, and the people we could obviously sell into our services and help on the back end would go up as well. So I think it's a very viable thing that you did. But when I was listening to another podcast that you did, I kind of I understood the context of you finding that was when you had to develop something for $12,000 yourself in order to test this out yourself. With I think it was the Key Person of Influence book. You developed a piece of software for that.
Yeah, so I did version 1 of my book, and back in 2010, and we were giving away thousands of copies of the book and hoping that people would email us or hoping that people would come through and become clients and all that sort of stuff. And then when we did the revised edition, we created this online scorecard, And what we did is put some pages into the book that said, if you want to get the most out of this book, start by taking the scorecard. Take this quiz, and it will tell you where you're strong and where you're weak as a key person of influence in your industry. And it will benchmark you against the things that are in this book. People absolutely adored this. They loved it. So when we would give away a copy of the free book, they would start by taking the quiz, the scorecard. We also had a bookmark in there, so it actually said, before you read the book, take the scorecard. So we generated 90,000 leads, people taking this online quiz, which translated into just under £20 million worth of sales, well over $20 million worth of sales. So essentially, we can track straight back to that one activity of giving away a free book with a quiz in it to 20 million worth of sales coming straight back in. So a really successful campaign. And when I built that, I actually built 3 of them, and they're about 8 to 12,000 each, because you need to build a landing page, a data capture quiz, and then dynamic results that change and shift based on how people score. And that basically took a lot of coding and design and all of that sort of stuff. Fast forward to today, we built the platform with AI built into it. So what took us 6 weeks and £8,000 takes 6 minutes, and it's part of a free trial, or $29 a month. If someone wants to do it. Essentially, we took all of our learnings and best practices and stuck it into software that's AI enabled, and it just all happens like magic. It's great.
One of the key things as well I've noticed as you as an entrepreneur, and obviously since you've left Australia, come to England and set up all these businesses, is that you are really really passionate about businesses having intellectual property, be it via digital assets, software as services, and other assets that you think a lot of businesses are underutilizing, that they don't even realize the assets within their business. How can someone in this audience look at their business right now and see the assets within their business that are not put into intellectual property that they can sell, and identify them, and then go and monetize them on the back end?
Yeah, let's start with this. The first thing to keep in mind is this is the greatest time in history to be an entrepreneur. For the first time ever, we have more money, available for investment into businesses. We have global markets. It never used to be the case that a small business could sell to people all over the world. We have all the tools and the technology for you to scale a business, and it's all just like plug and play. You can build a global team. You can have people scattered all over the world. It doesn't matter where they are. They could, it could be in Philippines or South Africa or any of those sorts of places. Boom, they're plugged into your business, and you're working together as a team, and you might coordinate on Slack and Zoom and all that sort of stuff. So it's the most incredible time to be in business. But the only condition for this working out well for you is that you're not stuck in a geography. You're not stuck selling to one geography. So if you are a personal trainer in Wimbledon, unfortunately, that means that you don't get to take advantage of this entire incredible ecosystem of stuff that's going on. So you've got to move across to selling intellectual property, media, and software that essentially can scale anywhere. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property is know-how. It's the knowledge. So it's essentially the ability to go from point A to point B predictably and reliably. Whatever is the steps to go from point A to point B, that's intellectual property. It can also be the right stories and analogies. So, for example, if you've got great stories from your background, that is technically, not technically, but it is part of your intellectual property. That's your story. It makes for good media. It makes for good content. It's reasons for people to come and work with you. If you've won awards, that is part of your unique intellectual property offering that allows people to say, hey, I want to work with you. And I want to work with you on getting this particular result. So purely and simply, one of the first things to do, if you want to do this yourself and unlock your intellectual property, you have to get into the shoes of a customer, the type of person that you sell to, and you've got to figure out where are they now, where do they want to be, and what's in the way. Those are the first 3 things. So what is their current reality, what is their desired reality, and what are their obstacles? And then you, as the entrepreneur, have to construct what we call a path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance takes them from where they are to where they want to be without hitting any of their obstacles. And if you can do that, that is essentially creating intellectual property. All right. Now, obviously, part of it is a set of steps. Part of it is the stories that bring it to life and inspire people to actually do it. all of that's included, but essentially, what is intellectual property? It's your ability to help people go from where they are to where they want to be without hitting their obstacles.
Can you give me a few examples of where you've seen this recently implemented into the business, which has turned it around in revenue numbers as well?
Why don't we do your business?
Well, okay, let's do it then. Let's do it. With contentremoval.com, obviously I look after a lot of celebrities and brands. So essentially, I'm selling high ticket services to celebrities and brands, and invariably a lot of those people they just want it done. They just want it done.
So here's the question. The first one is, who are they? Celebrities and brands. Where are they now? So when we think about where are they now, is it always that there's a piece of content that they wish that wasn't online?
Essentially, I get people at their most painful point, yeah.
So something's popped up and they're really frustrated. They don't want that online. Where do they want to be? They want it so that if people Google them, the page 1, 2, and 3 is beautiful and clean and it is nice and great, and that horrible content's been taken down, right? So that they've got a clean online reputation. So where are they now? Something is really annoying them. They have a piece of content that they don't want. Where do they want to be? Clean reputation, right? What are their obstacles? What are the criteria? So the obstacles that are in the way, they're busy. They've got to make sure that they stay focused on the thing that they do best. Criteria, they may need to keep their nose out of it. They might need to have it fit a certain budget, right? So all of those things. So we start with all of that. Now, here's the question I've got for you. Do you have a series of steps that you can go through predictably to get people to clean up their reputation?
So in terms of assessing and kind of ascertaining where they're at and where they want to get to, yes. But in terms of the reason why this is such a difficult skill and the reason it's took me 7 years to become one of the best in the world at it is because intrinsically every piece of content that I look at, and the reason why it's been so hard to scale other than high ticket is because every piece of content I look at is invariably different servers, different problems, different. Which
is that there are pillars?
Yeah, so there's definitely pillars. You're right. There's definitely pillars of things like, okay, you do this first and then you do this and then you do this and this. So it can be separated into pillars, yes.
Great. So those pillars, that's a beginning of intellectual property. So you can actually say, I've got a 6-pillar approach, and here's pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3, pillar 4, pillar 5, pillar 6. And then within those pillars, you can also break it down into, there are 3 key principles. Principle 1, 2, and 3. In pillar 1, I've got principle 1, 2, and 3. In pillar 2, there are 4 key principles. In pillar 5, there are some steps. So you can actually break it down into pillars, and then you can do some steps or principles within those. And now you've got intellectual property. If you could put it up on a big poster, that these are all the things that we do to get this down, that would be a piece of intellectual property. If you sat down and thought about it and said, hey, there's 99 techniques, 99 tactics that I've created over the last several years, and those tactics fit to easy and advanced, or easy, intermediate, and advanced. Now you've got your document called your 99 tactics.
Yeah, I like that. So essentially, then you're saying that I should also sell the intellectual property of how people can go and remove content themselves, because I've always been worried about that for cannibalizing my business because of the amount of years I've put in at getting so good at what I do.
So if I was running your business, I would focus predominantly on high ticket. But see, you can do this for anyone, anywhere in the world. So if I were in your shoes, I would probably have a team of maybe 5 or 6 people who do this, who I oversee and who actually do the work and actually go through the time-consuming activities of cleaning up a brand or a reputation. So I'd have my team. I'd focus on high ticket. And I would definitely scale up for high ticket. So I'd create an online assessment. Can we clean up your brand, or is it possible to fix your brand? Can you take the assessment to see if your brand is fixable? It might ask 30 or 40 different questions, and then it's like, yep, okay, we've got a landscape we can work with. I'd then get on the phone, talk to someone, and make sure that we can, if we've pre-qualified them, get on the phone, talk to them and see if we can sign them up for the high ticket. The high ticket would be the cleanup, followed by the ongoing
retainer
reputation building and cleaning. so that it goes ongoing. The primary core business would be working with celebrities and brands to do it all for them, that they can outsource it. Now, celebrities and brands, they absolutely will not ever be interested in buying a course or a do-it-yourself program. Their time is too valuable for them to focus on this idea of doing it themselves. They're just never going to do that. So if you're going to sell a do-it-yourself solution, you could put that on the website, or you could have it as a fallback. So when you speak to someone, or they take the assessment, and you realize that their business does, one of the questions could be, does your business do more than $500,000 a year of revenue? If their answer is no, you say, great, we recommend this cleanup kit for $500. So feel free to buy it. It's got all the videos, it's got the strategies, it's got all of that in there. We've given you all of the strategies that are cheap and effective, that allow you to do this yourself, or get an 80-20 result. It allows you to do the 80% of the 20% of stuff that gets 80% of the result done. And it's $500.
I love it, because when you get people that do a 30 or 40 question brand audit, one, they're serious about solving their problem. And two, you've given them tangible value based upon the data that they've given you anyway, and the PDF that they download on the back end of it. So it's actually valuable for them to understand their where they're open, and where they're where they're not seeing that they're left wide open. I mean, for argument's sake, if one of the questions on there was like, okay, do you own the first page of Google for your brand search or for your CEO search for that brand? And the answer is no. Well, that's a vulnerability now that we can backfill with press, with this, with that, and kind of that is a high ticket service sold on the back of that information that you've put in that quiz. So I can see how the software you've developed and Score App, and how everything can apply to every business out there. How would a bricks and mortar business be able to use Score App?
Well, it depends on what type of business. Have you got one in mind?
Let's talk about someone like selling cars, or selling homes, or so real estate.
I'll give you a real life example. Real life example in a business called Bunkie Life, and Bunkie Life. So the Canadian term for a cabin in the woods is a bunkie, and what you do is you get a little piece of land and you build a cabin, and you can go fishing from there or hiking from there. You can stay the night, couple of nights. It's designed as like a permanent tent, glamping pod thing, right? So it's a bunkie. And the business that is the leading company in this space is called Bunkie Life. And they send you out a kit and you build it yourself. So you take it out into the woods, you carry it out there, and then you build the bunkie kit in a weekend. Now, they used to run ads. Would you like to buy a bunkie? And it used to take people through to their e-commerce store and all of that sort of stuff. And then they changed their ad strategy to a quiz. Are you ready for the Bunkie Life? Test yourself to see if you're suitable, whether you've got the building skills, whether you've got the right place to put it, all of those sorts of things. And it was basically 20 questions, and it gives you a score on, I think, of 3 or 4 different categories. They doubled their sales. They went from 3.5 to 7 million a year through that ad spend. Essentially all they changed was, rather than sending people to e-commerce, they sent people to the quiz first and then e-commerce, based on their quiz results. So helping people to better understand whether they're ready to do this and whether they can do this led to twice as many sales for the exact same ad spend. So that's a fairly bricks and mortar kind of business. It's selling these construction kits. We've seen this work with all sorts of different businesses, traditional businesses, selling cars. Are you ready to upgrade your car? Would you qualify for a lease? Can you claim tax deductions on a new car? Should you switch across to an electric vehicle? Answer these quiz questions and find out. Any of those questions that customers have in their head before they purchase, you can build a quiz around that and help the customer to answer it themselves.
One place where I think this would work really well is, I've got a friend in Australia. He does like 150 million in commercial property, and he's got he does this certain type of unit. His name's Oscar Ledlin. He does this certain type of unit that they've created, which is polished concrete base, kitchen in the back, mezzanine floor, and they call them a flexi. It's a trademark term. It's a flexi unit, and something like that would be ideal then. So they could put are you ready for the flexi life? And you could take them through the questions, and then you qualify the leads on the Score app like that, essentially.
Yep. Is your business ready to grow and expand through flexi locations, flexi space? So any of those things. Here's the interesting one. It used to be when a customer wanted to buy from a company, and some of your younger listeners will find this like really strange, but it used to be that you would kind of think about buying something and then you would immediately talk to a salesperson. So you'd pick up the phone and talk to someone in sales. So you'd say, "Oh, I'm thinking about buying a guitar," right? What do you do? Go down to the guitar shop, talk to the guy who works in the guitar shop. And that was like how people would buy stuff. I'm thinking about moving into a new office space. Well, I better go talk to the commercial office space person. So one of the very first things that you used to do was talk to someone. And now the research says the opposite. People want to do tons of research online, and at the very, very, very last minute, they want to talk to someone. That's it. At the very end of the whole process. So, essentially, any questions that a person would have talked to a salesperson about early in the sales process, you want to put a scorecard or a quiz up front so that people can kind of do that online assessment stuff. They don't want to talk to humans anymore. They want to kind of interact with a computer system that will give them an answer without having to talk to a human. At the very end, once they've done their research, then they'll talk to the human and they'll buy. So it's really interesting. In the last 10 to 15 years, the sales process has flipped on its head completely. And now, you bring in salespeople at the very last minute as opposed to having them available at the beginning.
So it's similar then to long form sales copy, because when I used to do long form sales copy on the website and stuff like that, and that's obviously worked quite well for content removal, we addressed all the pain points in the long form copy so that when they got to the end of the copy and they submit the form, that it's answered all of their common questions that we would have on a sales call and sales call environment, so that when you get them on the call and they've read the sales copy, that they're a better lead for you as a business, so they're easier to close, and you can give them the result because they've read exactly what you do on the sales letter.
It's not just good for you, it's good for them as well. That's how people want to buy. They don't actually want to talk to people anymore. They want to be able to read stuff, and then at the last minute, once they know you're the right company to talk to, then they want to talk to you. And it might just be that they want a little bit of therapy at that point. They just want to say, "Hey, we've had this problem and it really sucks. It's really been annoying us, and we've read up online that you guys are the best ones," and then they're ready to buy. So
let's go into how people can build themselves into a key person of influence, because obviously that was one of the key books that I read of yours, and obviously from these books and oversubscribed, what I kind of went was, I was like, okay, I don't need many leads. Well, look, I know that got kind of counterintuitive to what you said, but I don't need as many leads to go high ticket as I do if I try and sell a $49 product, essentially. So from reading your books in the past, I've gone, okay, right, I didn't start at the bottom of the market. I just started at celebrities and brands and shot for the top people in whatever niches I wanted to go to, and worked my way backwards down, not even that far backwards, just a little bit down through that little industry, and signed every one of them, because that to me at the time was like, that allowed me to do $500,000 in business inside the first 2 months. So that's the way I approached it. So how can people build that key person of influence for themselves so that they can do that as well?
Well, it's really important to put a face on a business. All the data and all the research says that the only thing that gets cut through at the moment is the personal brand. The personal brand is the pointy end of the wedge. So I'll give you an example. In football, Cristiano Ronaldo has something like 500 million followers on Instagram. If you add up every single football club, they come into less than 200 million. So one player, one personal brand, has more than double the entire following of the entire league, every single club. Now, you've got to keep in mind, these clubs, they're like 100 years old. They've got like intergenerational support, like grandpa followed the club, dad followed the club, I follow this club. People wear the jerseys. They're super passionate. They talk about it. They discuss it. Like, these are not boring brands. These are very important brands to the people who love football clubs. And yet, one player has more than double the following of all the clubs combined. Richard Branson has something like 15 million followers across his platforms. Virgin has like 250, 300,000. It's wild. It's like not just an order of magnitude, multiple orders of magnitude. Here's a crazy one. Tim Cook has twice as many followers on Twitter and other platforms as Apple. Apple's considered to be the most valuable big brand, and Tim Cook has got double the followers. Now, Tim Cook is like not some influencer. He comes out and he like does a presentation for 5 minutes every 6 months, right? He tweets a couple of times a month. He's a busy CEO, but people need to know who's Tim Cook, and then they like Apple. And originally, Apple got cut through against IBM with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs went up against IBM and beat IBM at their own game by adding a personal brand to it. Everyone fell in love with Steve Jobs and his way of thinking, and that's why they switched across to Apple. So personal brands are everything. You've got to be a key person of influence if you want your business to get off the ground. You've got to be willing to represent your business. So the first thing is just stop any resistance that you've got to this idea of like, oh, I just want to be hiding out in the background. I don't want to be a key person of influence. I don't want anyone to know who I am. You are going to get beaten by a competitor who has a key person of influence at the helm. So first of all, keep that in mind. Second, a key person of influence is not an influencer, right? You're not going to have to become the next Instagram model who's, photographing the breakfast and doing on, fashion shoot, try on this outfit type thing. You're not going to have to do any of that stuff to be a good key person of influence. What you are going to have to do is 5 things. Number 1, get really good at pitching. Pitching your business is the cornerstone skill of every entrepreneur. You're going to pitch that business into existence. The entrepreneurial success story is the journey of 1,000 pitches. There is no great business that came into existence where the founder didn't pitch it 1,000 times. So you've got to get good at pitching. Number 2, publishing content. People want to discover you online. You've got to give them podcasts and blogs and articles and tweets and even a book. And you publish that stuff so that people can easily read up on you, watch, listen, whatever they need to do. Third one is signature products. So you've got to create products that are associated with your personal brand, that are differentiated by your personal brand. And those are your signature products. Number 4 is that you need to build a profile so that you are who Google says you are. And that when someone Googles, you've got a great profile, right? You know a bit about that. And that you're going to put yourself on a stage and you're going to put yourself on platforms and you're going to be on social media. You're not going to be living on social media, but you're certainly going to be able to be found on social media. And then the 5th one is where the money really kicks in, and that is partnerships. You're going to do joint ventures and promotions and cross promotions. You're going to do distribution partnerships, brand partnerships. You might build an advisory board. You might package in other people's products or services. You might have your products and services packaged in with others. You might do email swaps. You might get some angel investment, right? All of those are different types of partnerships. Essentially, those partnerships happen when you're good at pitching, publishing products and profile, and then boom, you get the partnerships in there as well. And that's where the business really takes off. So your job as a key person of influence is to do those 5 things because they're very hard, if not impossible, to delegate.
So what percentage of attributed revenue now comes through partnerships and joint ventures for your particular brands?
So I don't have the percentage to hand, but I think of partnerships as a great multiplier. If I create a good product, here's an example. So partnerships are all about structures, right? You've got to know how to structure these deals. And the reason most people don't do partnerships is they just don't know the structures. So for example, why do most people not get angel investment? They don't know how to structure angel investment. They don't know how to pitch it. Why do most people not have a brand ambassador? They don't know how to structure a brand ambassador agreement. Why do people not have a non-executive director on their board? They don't know how to structure a non-executive director agreement. So the structures are really important. Each deal has its own structure, and those structures have been done hundreds of times before, and you just need to know how those structures work. But there's one structure that's really super powerful, and most small businesses don't know it, and it's called a brand product distribution structure. And basically, what you do is you take your business and you ask the question, who is a personality that would enhance our brand? Let's do a deal with them to get a bigger brand. So we're going to align with someone for a bigger brand. Who is someone whose product would enhance our product? And we'll do a product partnership. Who is a distribution that would enhance our distribution? And you will do one of those. A great example of this is Nespresso. So Nespresso was this office coffee business, and they got inspired to do a consumer version. So they got George Clooney to represent the brand. They worked with Magimix to create a kitchen device that would make the coffee, and then they worked with Selfridges to do luxury high-end retailing. And basically, they had the three things: the brand, the product, the distribution. They brought those together. Boom. Nike do this all the time, really, really well. They say, we're going to be in the tennis space. So we're going to get Serena Williams. We're going to do a partnership with Fruit of the Loom to create Serena Williams apparel. And we're going to do a partnership with Walmart to sell Serena Williams Walmart edition clothing. And we just made another 100 million just by doing those three things. So this is called brand product distribution. Small businesses can do it as well.
So they do that, and even the clothing brand, because they don't want to put their own label on it, they align with another brand's label to put their label on it, so it can go into a lower cost point. Yeah, I haven't even seen that myself from Nike, but obviously I wouldn't see it because it's Fruit of the Loom.
No, yeah, of course. Well, Nike's supply chain is like thousands of suppliers. They have all these suppliers that make the rubber in the shoe soles, and they have all these suppliers that do like everything from like the uppers and the laces and the boxes, and like all of those are product partnerships. But they do overt product partnerships as well. They actually do product partnerships that are where they're working with, like, for example, a product partnership that I think they've done is with what's that waterproof Gore-Tex. So they work with Gore-Tex to create a hiking shoe, and it's Gore-Tex is named on the shoe as part of the product partnership.
Yeah, because I suppose that's similar to what 3M do, because 3M are partnered with like a lot of Post-it notes and other stuff like that to provide the stick to the Post-it note, etc., etc. To kind of, because obviously they're an adhesive company, and they're featured. Yeah, they're featured on no end of things as a relation to that. So brand partnerships then are a key thing. But if there's one thing then that you've learned over the last 12 months of entrepreneurship that you didn't know before, but you now know that you wish you'd known sooner, what would that be?
One thing would be that people who have massive followings, like millions and millions and millions of followers, they're really, really, really hungry to do deals. They want to do deals to make the most of those followers. They can't do deals with everyone, and they can't do deals with anyone. They've certainly got a criteria. They have to have something that's good for their people. They have to have a quality partnership in place. They have to have a good legal agreements in place. They have to do something that can scale easily. But my goodness, do they want to do deals? They know that they're sitting on this massive following, and they want to do something with it. They're too busy doing the core of what they do in order to figure it out for themselves. So they're actually looking for really good deals to do. And if you can do a deal with someone like that, my goodness, it can be transformational. It can be an overnight transformation. As soon as they drop it into their following, they can create a business very rapidly. Classic example of this would be what Logan Paul's done with Prime. So it's now $1 billion plus business, and it's like a couple of years old, or not even. And basically, he's done this all through partnerships, and it's a great example.
I was actually speaking to the CEO of Prime because he's a friend of mine, and wow. he was explaining to me the back end and how I was talking to him about distribution, him scaling distribution, and he's like, the thing is, Frankie, what you don't understand is like no one's, not even Coca-Cola, have done this scale of distribution scaled this quickly across this many countries at once. It's like, and he was explaining it to me, and it was mental at how much you have to conceptualize to be able to do that, and how many people you have to partnership with in order to get that done. Because when that brand was, when people were selling those drinks for £15-20 a bottle, that Prime themselves didn't want that to happen, but they could not scale quick enough production to be able to be able to bring that, because they wanted everyone to have access to it for £2, but they could not. He said it was physically impossible for him to put enough factories online to be able to produce the stuff to be able to get it to the marketplace quick enough. So that's a mad example for you to use.
It's a wild example, and sometimes we think about these examples and we go, oh, well, that's nice for them, but it wouldn't happen for me. Well, actually, we live in a time where those deals can happen. very rapidly. You need to know how to pitch them. You need to know how to structure those deals. You need to have a scalable product. So it's not like they happen by magic. You have to meet certain criteria. But oh my goodness, it used to be that a $10 million company kind of never happened in under 10 years. And now these things happen to, like we've built a $25 million company in under 3 years. And it's a side hustle. It's not even the main thing. It's not the main business. I've got, a group of companies and I've spread my time between all of them. And I'm not by no means the best at this. Look at Elon Musk, right? Comes up with an idea and it's a multi-billion-dollar business in a matter of a year or two. So we live in this time where things can happen incredibly fast. The biggest issue at the moment is that people just don't know how to put these things together. If you imagine, I've got 3 little kids. If you imagine what it's like playing Lego without the instructions, you'd get nothing done. If you were to tip out the Lego and you've got a picture of the front of the box and you can see, okay, that's the X-Wing, that's what it's meant to look like. And then you tip all the Legos out there and it's just all in the parts. And now you've got to figure out how to start and how to put all the pieces together to make it look just like the front of the box. You'd never do that. But the Lego, they go, do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And then suddenly you can actually build it very rapidly, perfectly. The problem with entrepreneurship at the moment is that people are rushing. They're so excited. They're rushing in to try and build something, but they're not figuring out the instructions. They're not saying, what order should I do these things in?
One thing I want to ask you, I think that I think a lot of people would get value from is obviously you're a man with 3 young children and you've got a beautiful wife that probably sits behind you. It's a very valuable asset to you as a man that allows you the time to be able to go and build these things. I mean, how important has it been to have that kind of structure and relationship with your wife to allow that to happen and to facilitate that growth?
Yeah, we have a great relationship. And, my wife is focused on property renovations and developments. So we own property in really nice locations and she will buy stuff that's really run down and turn it around from low spec to high spec. And that's a great strategy, right? So that's fantastic. We've got 3 little kids. So, when I say little, 5, 6, and 8. So pretty young kids. And we've got a fairly traditional setup. I've got all businesses. Elena's really great at, investing and putting the money to work. We have a great work-life balance with the kids and taking the kids and doing fun things and teaching them to ride bikes and swim and all of that sort of stuff. It's everything. How important is it? It's absolutely everything. It's the cornerstone of life. So it's hard to even put a measurement on it because it's basically it's everything. It's life.
But see, a lot of young men out there are being exposed to a lot of this content at the moment that's talking to them about masculinity and this, that, and the other. And some of the content out there at the moment can be quite toxic in its nature of how they try and portray how masculinity is. But for you as an entrepreneur and the way that what was your kind of criteria for looking for the right woman to get on the boat with you to be able to know that you're going in the right direction? Because I think even though this might not seem relevant to a lot of people, it is relevant because most of the successful people that I've interviewed, like you, that are doing these hundreds of millions and have these portfolios of companies that are doing well, have got this sorted in their life and have made a good selection to be able to grow with. So it's important for me to understand.
It's a really great topic. The first thing I'd say, because I see a lot of this content as well, you've really got to listen to people who've got the result that you want and not people talking about the result that you want, because there are a lot of people who are doing podcasts on dating and relationships and all this sort of stuff, and they're not married and they don't have kids, right? So they're telling you what they think might work, but unless they're married with kids and they've actually made that work, unless they're happily married with kids, you really should sort of discount the level of advice. You want to find people who are happily married with kids. If you want to end up happily married with kids, you want to find people who have ended up happily married with kids and find out, what do they say?
Yeah.
Because I bet there's some overlap, but I bet there's also some compromise. For me personally, in my 20s and early 30s, I was flying around the world, traveling, having an amazing time building businesses, and I was up on stage all the time speaking. So I had no problem finding dates, right? So one thing that I would say to any young guy who's looking for dates, or partners, and a partner, is the more you chase it, the less likely it is to happen. The more you're doing cool shit, the more likely they come out of the woodwork, right?
100%.
So, like for me personally, I put zero energy or zero effort into chasing girls, but I was always meeting amazing people. I was always because I think what I've found is that what is attractive about a guy is he's got good stories and he's doing interesting stuff and he's ambitious and he's up to stuff and he's got cheeky takes on the world, and he's having fun with life. And if you're a guy who's having fun with life, then that's incredibly attractive. I used to host dinner parties and things like that, and I'd invite all these people, and I'm having fun with life and great stuff shows up. So one time I meet this amazing woman called Elena, and she says, I've just sold my company and I've come back to London, and she's been working in the tech industry. And I say, oh, cool. Well, I've got a few tech ideas that I'm trying to get off the ground. Do you want to have a coffee? Do you want to have a chat? So we have a coffee, and it's a beautiful sunny day. And the restaurant that I chose was like kind of dark. I said, let's go for a walk instead. So we go for a walk, and then I say, hey, I know a great rooftop bar. Let's go to a rooftop bar and let's have a cocktail. So we end up talking and we're having a great time. And we end up talking for 12 hours, 13 hours. And I'm just thinking, this is great. Like she's amazing. And essentially what happened is one of the questions I said is, what's next for you? And she said, I want to have kids and I want to be a wife, and I want to, I'm looking for a husband. I'm looking for a family. I want to be a wife and I want to be a mum. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I've not heard that before. That sounds really cool. A lot of the, ladies that I was talking to, they didn't want to do that. And she was like, no, that's what I'm looking for. And my brain started thinking to myself, you know what? I'm kind of that age where I'm thinking about that stuff as well. I want to be a husband. I want to have kids. And so I just kind of it was just kind of really cool the way that started. And this was before we'd established any, connection. So we started dating and yeah, it was, we were engaged pretty quickly. We were married pretty quickly. We had kids pretty quickly. We just discovered that we were aligned on that. I really think that the person you marry, it's almost like a co-founder of a company.
100%.
And the vision or the mission of that company is to have kids. That's the purpose. You're basically forming a partnership, and you're looking for someone who is a good co-founder for a startup called a baby. And basically, you're going to be running a house together. You're going to be having kids together. You're going to, build a life together, build a family together. So you're looking for someone who's a really good fit for doing all of those things with.
So when obviously, look, I've tried a lot of dating in my life, and one thing I can say to a lot of the young men and young women listening to this is the fact of anyone who's single, is the fact of it's very important, because what I've noticed with me is when I've made selections predicated on looks and it's hot and it's fun and it's like that, it's cost me massively on the mental space, and that drops down into revenue numbers. And then when your revenue numbers start getting affected because you've chased spice, that is not ideal. And then you have to deal with and usually what happens is after that ends, you're left with a lull, and then you lose more revenue. So it all comes back around to hit you. You get them doors in the saloon that go like that and swing in and out. You get hit on the way in and hit on the way out. That's how improper selection of a partner can affect anyone who's trying to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and once you've got this area of your life sorted, all of that energy gets freed up to go into building a life together. Yeah. And the right partner, so in my companies, people ask me all the time, how do you have 8 companies all running? And it's because I start by putting together the right team. So I have the right people running each of those companies. And We typically in each company have like a dominant two people who are going to be running that business, and effectively one is going to be accountable for revenue and one's going to be accountable for operations. And we basically, every business has got its own team. Very rapidly, I'm getting a business to a team of about 8 people. So I have multiple companies that I own, and each one has its own team, and I'm essentially like a coach to the team. I'm like the director who is making sure that team's happy and resourced and all of that sort of stuff. But when you find the right person, the right partner, like everything happens from there. I truly believe that business, everything great worth achieving is a team sport. Like it's all a team sport. So you're not going to build a great company on your own. You're not going to build a great relationship or a great life on your own. You're looking for the right team to put together in any project. So having kids and having a family is a team sport. Having a multi-million-dollar tech company is a team sport. All of that stuff is very much finding the right people, finding the right person to do that with. So once you find the right person, you free up all that energy to get something done in that space, to have a great result. And one of the first steps in finding the right person is stop spending time with the wrong person. Like if you know that crazy chicks that you meet at nightclubs always result in getting beaten up on the way in and the way out.
Yeah.
Stop meeting crazy,
Yeah.
And if you know that meeting women on dating apps is not the right way and that's not working for you, then stop that. And also, if you're becoming cynical and jaded by watching videos on YouTube that tell you over and over and over again that that currently you'll never meet the right person and women want this and unreasonable and you're never going to be able to succeed in relationships, stop watching that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Start watching content by people who are happily married with kids, if that's what you want, and say, well, of course people do that. Of course people become happily married with kids. Stop listening to the nonsense, or stop listening to the highly polarizing content that is warping your head into thinking you will never have this, right? It's really not that hard, but start by listening to people who have got the thing you want.
So I have a few rules in business that I follow, and all my mentors are like invariably happy married or in long-term relationships with girlfriends. My mum and dad have been married 45 years. I don't do business with any man that I know cheats on women, because if he cheats on women, he'll cheat on me in business. So it's just a few metrics, because I do not resonate with that way of moving. So I will not do business with you predicated on how you move and how I see you move. And people might think that I think it all correlates further down the track, and you get hit by the saloon door. I've seen it too many times. And I also think that having a business partner, like if you talk about finding the right partners in business, and say you're two men, and you might have another guy that's wicked at all the other things that you're not good at, but if he's out there actively cheating on his partner, he's going to cheat on you in business, is the way I see it. So that's a few little things that I have that I will make sure is always on point.
There's another side to that as well. So in addition to having that mindset that it's okay to just get away with stuff, which is not a great mindset to be in business with someone who's got that mindset, people open up portals to negativity in their life, right? So relationships, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it should be this way or not, relationships, and especially sexual relationships, come with all sorts of explosive baggage. So I have seen guys who have multiple girlfriends and who have multiple partners, and they cheat and all this sort of stuff. Every time they do it, they open up an energy-sucking portal, and that portal gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they end up inviting things into their life and drama into their life. Men who have a very tight relationship with the truth and have a very tight relationship with the way that they conduct themselves, they don't open themselves up to that negative energy, right? They're not surrounded by these little energy portals that leak negativity into their lives. So if you go and you might say, oh, well, it's no big deal because, it's just I've got an agreement with my partner that I can do this every now and then. Well, maybe you do have that agreement, but I can tell you that it's not going to work out that way. If you have four or five different girls that you've kind of opened up an energy gateway with,
Yeah.
and there's, and if it's not clean, there's just an energy leakage that happens, and it's negative and it's not positive, right? So you end up with all this drama in your life that sucks the life force out of you. My view is you want to have a really good, clean relationship with your spouse. You don't want to invite negative drama into your life. You don't want to do stuff that you wouldn't proudly put the spotlight on. And then life is easy.
I think everything comes back round. So at the end of the day, if you can just move how you'd like everyone else to move, then it kind of helps you align with the right people. Anyway, when I was studying and researching you for this interview, obviously, like I said, I read the books, but one of the things that I learned about you on another podcast was your a lot of the way that you delegate with your executive assistant and how she fills your calendar, because you have a habit of saying yes to everything, like similar to what I do. And I love the way that you justified how you say yes to everything, and then you get your EA to selectively select with a different set of eyes what goes in your calendar, when it goes in there, and how it gets moved. Can you kind of expand on that for me?
Yeah, so I've got a friend of mine who's an investor in the stock market, and he says, Daniel, you will never be a great investor in the stock market because you can create the bull case for anything. The bull case is why it's going to go up, right?
Yeah.
So I have a mindset where I can always see the potential of the opportunity or that sort of stuff, which means I tend to go, yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's try this. So I have a very much an open and a yes, let's try stuff kind of mentality. So a lot of stuff comes at me, a lot of opportunities come at me, and I say, sounds good, but I'll just need to check that with my executive assistant or send the information to my assistant. So the way it works is that about once a month, we have a 90-minute meeting, and we go through all the opportunities, everything that's in the pipeline, and I start by explaining these are the outcomes that I'm trying to achieve by the end of the year or by the end of the quarter. This is the most important stuff, and we go through the priorities. So we both align around what are the big goals and then what are the priorities that lead off those big goals. And essentially, I hand that over to her, and she's the filter because her answer is no to everything. She's the opposite to me, right? She's known as a stone wall. Even amongst my team, they're like, Susie won't put time in the diary for this. So she stonewalls stuff. Her default response is no. And my default's, yeah, why not? Right. So if I just get her to understand the priorities and the goals, and then I send everything over to her, she puts stuff in the diary when it's a priority, when it's a goal, when it's aligned. Because
she's obviously clearly understood the mission and has set parameters now to work from, and then she's got no internal dialogue going on because she doesn't deal with all that. She just deals with, does this align with this mission that you've put me on at the start of the month, or does it not? And it's a great metric to judge it from.
Totally. The other thing too is I get so much done because I have an assistant who's scheduling stuff in the diary. So my days are insanely productive because, and mind you, sometimes the priority is like gym, and the gym meetings, the gym appointments go straight in first into the diary before anything else. So basically, I become very, very productive. Like my big productivity hack is I just have an executive assistant who knows what I'm trying to achieve and schedules it. And I just do what's in the diary. The other thing too is I'm pretty lazy in terms of I don't know what's coming tomorrow until I look. So it's like only the night before I'm like, oh wow, I'm doing this cool thing tomorrow. I didn't realize.
It's
cool.
It's a great way. It's a great way of operating though. So how long into your journey as an entrepreneur should it be before you bring on that executive assistant?
So I did that pretty much straight away. When I was 22 years old, I copied my mentor. He started his business with 3 people. I was one of them. And he brought on rebels and misfits, right? Like I was just a complete, inexperienced person who was just kind of passionate and a bit of a rebel, bit of a misfit. And he just brought together myself and these other couple of young people, and we became his starting team. And he got us doing stuff, and we did it, and we were passionate, and we learnt on the job. And so when I went and started my company, I started with 3 people, and I put my team together, and we launched, and we did 1.3 million in the first year working together. When I came to the UK and I arrived with a suitcase and a credit card, I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any networks. One of the things that in Melbourne, Australia, I'd done Latin jive dancing. So when I arrived in London, I looked up, is there a Latin jive dancing club? And I joined Latin jive dancing. And when I was dancing, I was telling the girls that I was meeting there, I'm looking for an executive assistant. I've just arrived and I'm looking for someone. If you know anyone who would make a good assistant, let me know. And I basically ended up with this amazing assistant within a week or two. I basically enrolled this person, and then I had a salesperson join the team, and we had an appointment setter and a sales closer and an events person. So I put together my team starting by going to dance classes.
You see,
so ridiculous.
You see, it's a counterintuitive approach, essentially what you said, because when I started my business, I started on my own and then built it up to like 2 or 3 people and then on from there. But you're saying, set your goal out and start with a 3. And I think to be honest, if I look back now and think, we did half a mil Australian in that first year of business. I think if we'd started potentially with 3 people, we probably could have done a hell of a lot more revenue, because I went against the grain and went top of the market, worked down, which was good, which was predicated on the back of similar to what you'd said. But I didn't think about starting with 3. So that's a real good insight for a lot of you listening to this, what Daniel said there.
The British military, they never send people out on their own. It's always 2, right?
Yeah.
They've been going for 400 years, right? So they've tried every HR experiment you could do. So 2 people is a scout team, scouting an opportunity. The smallest team is a 4-person fire team, which is defending a little position, doing a short-term thing, or a campaign in business. The standard team is called a section. That's 8 people. And then that's part of a platoon, which is about 40 people. So I think in terms of, if there's an organization that's already figured this out, like British military, then I'm just going to copy that. So if I've got a new idea, 2-person scout team goes straight onto it. Then we do a 4-person campaign, and I put a 4-person team on it. They go off and do a campaign, see if it works. Then we establish an 8-person section, and that 8-person team, their job is to do $1 million of revenue and to get that thing up and running. And then we build that into a platoon, about 35, 40 people, and their job is to run a multi-million-pound business and achieve a 7-figure EBITDA profit. So it's very simple: 2, 4, 8, 30, and that's my formula. And the faster you can be hitting those numbers, building an established business, then away you go.
I hope all of you that are listening to this have just literally took that in, and if you can rewind that bit, in fact listen to this podcast twice, because there's that much value in it, because that is profound. How it goes against the grain of what traditional entrepreneurs are saying. I just work harder, and all this fluff and all this bullshit that people are telling you. But what Daniel said there is, like, never start a business with just 1 person. Always start with 2. You, and even if it's just you and the executive assistant at the start, it's better than you on your own. I think that's brilliant.
Oh, totally. I mean, imagine a football match, right? Imagine you go onto a football match and you know that the right number of people is 11, but you think, oh, I'm going to run out there on my own. Once I've kicked a few goals, then I'll get another person. Then we've kicked a few goals together. then we'll get another couple of people. Yeah. It's like, you're never going to do it. You're never going to get off the ground. So if you know that a minimum viable campaign team is 4 people, you just got to start with 4 people. A great example is a bank robbery, right? So think about how they rob a bank. It's 3 or 4 people getting together at night, having a pizza and a beer, and then they get out the Lego and the Matchbox cars and they draw a map and they figure it out. Then they go on the weekend and they drive the getaway route. They do all this stuff together as a little mini team.
Yeah.
They do not say, I'm going to run into the bank, let off a shotgun, and then try and recruit a getaway car driver. So business is the same. You should be sitting around with people saying, hey, I'm launching a business. Do you want to be part of the launch team? I need a salesperson. I need a call setter. I need a person who can help with our website. I need someone who's going to do email marketing campaigns. So you're trying to bring people in. The problem is that if you're a new business, the only people you get are misfits. And that's how it is. You just have to start with misfits. Rebels and misfits is where you begin. You're going to start with people who don't have a job, or their job is McDonald's, or you're going to rope people in. One of my favorite things I've ever done is when I notice someone who's cool, who's great, I just say, hey, would you be willing to quit your job and come work with me? And then I shut up. So I've done this with like restaurant staff, and I've done this with the guy who's like selling me a mobile phone package. I've gone, hey, you're really good at sales. Would you quit your job and come work with me? And they always go, what do you do? Or they say no, right? So if they say no straight away, no, I wouldn't do that, then there's no chance. But if they say, what do? You can get them.
Yeah, I love it.
If they ask the question, what do you do? What is it you do? You know that they're up for it.
You've said some things on here that are profound, and if I'd known these at the start of my entrepreneurial journey, it would have been a hell of a lot easier, to be honest. Like, because I would have never started on my own, knowing the way you've just articulated that, and the way you've explained it, and the reasoning behind it. I can understand as an entrepreneur how that would have benefited me, and how I would have done I probably would have done 2 million plus in my first year of business if I had operated and gone out that way. Because we would have each per person, if we'd gone out with 4 from the offset, you would have done 500,000 per person in that business. No drama at all. And you're absolutely right, and it's somewhere where I've oversight. But if there's obviously look, I know you're.
How many people are on your team now, Frankie?
I've got 2 outsourcers and me at the moment. I'm gonna I've had this. I'm going to bring on an EA. I need one.
Well,
but because
better than this. Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Better than bringing on an EA.
Yeah.
What I would like you to do is design your organization with 8 people, right? So you're going to be the key person of influence. You're going to have a general manager. You're going to have a couple of people in sales, a couple of people in operations doing the work, maybe a financial controller. But I want you to design, what does my organization look like with 8? And how much revenue do we have to do? What would everyone do? Like, what would this team look like if we were 8 people? And maybe there's an EA on the team. Maybe there is an executive assistant who does this, that, and the other. But I want you to work backwards from
the goal,
this outcome. All right?
Yeah.
So we want to reverse engineer the inspiring future. We don't want to forward engineer what we have. So we just simply say, like, for example, if you had a block of land, beautiful beachside block of land, and you think to yourself, what could I put on it? I could put a hotel. I could put a dream home. I could put a little resort. I could put a bungalow. What could I put on there? What you definitely would not do is just start building something and then hopefully it ends up as a hotel, or hopefully it ends up as a dream home. You've got to have a beautiful design, and you're working backwards to create the design that you've already designed. How detailed should it be? It should be so freaking detailed. You know exactly how many doors, how many toilets, how many doorknobs, everything. Now, when I design businesses, I start with, do I want this to be a 40-person business doing 6 million of revenue? Okay, great. If that's what I want, what would they all do? Okay, I've got a leadership team. I've got a CEO, CTO, CFO, CMO, COO. Okay, great. Now I've got a regional team. I've got a head of European markets. I've got a head of Asia Pacific. I've got a head of this. I've got product managers. Product manager for this. They're going to have 4 people in their team. They're going to have 8 people in their team. We're going to have these salespeople doing this. So I'm mapping it all out. I'm building an org chart. I haven't even started yet, right? And then I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to generate the revenue? Okay, we need 15,000 people paying £49 a month. Okay, great. How do we build that out? What are going to be our channels? So I'm designing, this is what it looks like when it's beautiful, when it's perfectly done. And I'm going to work backwards from that. So what I'm going to try and do is build some stages. 2-person, 4-person, 8-person, 40-person. I'm going to build up in those stages. What are we going to look like at this point, at this point, at this point? And I'm going to then, when I go and talk to my team, I go and I say, what we're trying to build here is a 40-person company doing 6 million of revenue and 1.5 million of profit. And here's what it's going to be. And here's how many clients we're going to need. And these are the markets we're going to operate in. These are the roles. Do you want to help me build it? And they go, yeah, totally. So I'm giving them clarity. This is the beautiful outcome I'm working towards. Let's work backwards from the end result, not forwards from where I am today.
Do you think I've built it wrong then? Because I've got 2 people over here in one business, which is obviously the content removal side of things, and then I've got 2 people over here in the podcast entity as well. Like, obviously, they fall on.
You've not built it wrong. if this was the perfect vision
Yeah.
of where you wanted to get to and you reverse engineered it to be just like this, then you didn't do it wrong. But if you just kind of added a piece and added a piece and added a piece and you ended up with this, then yeah, you did build it wrong.
Yeah.
So at any time you can change this. So what I want you to do is think about, what does it look like if it was perfect? What is the future beautiful organization? How much revenue? How much profit? What kind of customers? Right? And we build it and we say, like, a great question is, what would it look like in a saleable outcome,
as a saleable asset? Yeah.
Yeah, what would it look like as a saleable asset? So you might say, well, it needs to be about 40 people. We're going to have celebrities, brands. We're going to do deals with the big four accounting firms. We're going to do deals with the FTSE 100. We're going to do deals with these companies. We're going to have each one of these markets is going to have a team of 8 people who do that. We're going to build 4 teams of 8. Plus a leadership team. We're going to have a board of directors and a non-executive director. We're going to have this great business. The business itself is going to do 8 million. It's going to do 3 million of profit, and we're going to sell it to this publicly listed company that wants to buy a reputation management company because it's perfectly aligned to their strategy. So then you start building that future state. And then once you've got the future state all mapped out, you then say, all right, who are some of the people I can plug straight in, right? What's going to be our build-up points? That's how you want to build the business.
So I should build contentremoval.com as a saleable asset, the thing that can get me the multiple exit and everything like that, because it's a clear strategy. And I should build the podcast as my personal brand podcast and as a separate entity, so that I've got something to do.
Not necessarily. Do you want a lifestyle business, or do you want a performance business? Do you even want an exit?
I would love an exit, but essentially I have done the reverse engineered organizational chart in a different metric to what you've said of the key people. And I think I need eight people to get the 25-30 mil that I would want for this type of business. I think you could do it with 8 people.
Core team of 8. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So core team of 8. So great. That's pretty exciting. I personally, if you know that you're going to be building a very big and exitable business, I would be using the podcast to build assets that are saleable assets that come as part of the business. And I'd build the podcast in such a way that all of the podcasts become saleable assets with the business. The idea that you're not going to have something to do after you've exited. I've exited several businesses. There's always something to do. It is never a problem that you don't have stuff to do.
I love podcasting. This to me is art. I treat it as art, and I fully love do you know what I mean? Like, I was excited to come and speak with you today, and I'm excited. I drove down to Bournemouth at the weekend to speak with a guy, and I fell in love with this art, you know, and it's probably cost me a lot of money falling in love with this, to be honest.
I think you're building great assets, and anyone who's listening knows who you are, what you're about. They can send people to your business. I would dare say that you've got an issue around capacity, that essentially large corporates are going to look at your agency and say it's too small for them. If I was a big 4 accounting firm and I said, hey, look, we want to clean up some of this stuff that's old, or it's legacy, or we've got this negative press and we want to address it better, I would want to have an agency that's bigger than a few people. I want to have something that seems like it's got some.
I agree with you, but do you want to hear a little bit of a truth behind that? A lot of those big agencies come to me and say, Frankie, how the fuck do we get rid of this?
Yeah, they outsource it.
So 100%. But I know what you're saying. I can literally.
Well, they'll be the ones that sell, though. They'll be the exitable business.
Yeah. They'll be the one that do the multiple, and we won't if we don't sort it out pretty quick.
If you do build a 30 billion, are you talking about 30 million value or 30 million revenue?
No. I think you could get it to. I think you could get it to inside 16 months. I'm sure you could get it to 10 million and 10, 12 million in revenue, which would mean it would probably be worth 30 million exit, wouldn't
it? Depends. So when someone buys a company, there's 3 big things that they want. They want an operational team that is going to stick around and run the business.
Yep.
Normally, a stable team is normally a team that's bigger than 30 people. The problem with an 8-person team is normally they're loyal to the founder, and as soon as the founder leaves, you get 2 or 3 of them leave, and that's almost half the company. An acquirer is always a little bit nervous about an 8-person team because they see that it could easily fall over. So a 30-person team is much more saleable than an 8-person team. Even though you're thinking about efficiency, an acquirer is thinking about stability.
So where this was a key metric, and I agree with you in what you're saying, is because I know a fitness business in Australia that had a smaller team and was trying to exit for a couple of $100 million. And they had to go and the CEO had to go and employ people that he didn't really think he needed to build the organizational chart out to sell the business. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. He said, it doesn't need to make sense. I just need to sell this thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I get it.
It totally does make sense when you view it through the eyes of an acquirer. An acquirer wants a stable team where some people, if you've bought businesses, you know what an 8-person team is like. They're totally loyal to the founder, and as soon as the founder leaves, 3, 4, 5 people go off and start their own company. 3 or 4 of them go and have a beer one night and say, hey, we should go do this ourselves. So-and-so just sold for millions. We should go build ourselves a business that sells for millions. Yeah. That's what an 8-person team is like. Once you hit 30, 40 people, they are just happily working in the business. They don't care who the founder is or the owner of the business. They don't care that it changed hands. They just keep working. So you need to get, like, the acquirer wants the business to have hit that point, and they will pay more for that because it's just, it's just got that stability. And it's kind of like a big house. If I was to buy a beautiful big house, I want it to have plenty of bedrooms and bathrooms. And someone will say, well, that's inefficient. You don't have that many, I just never needed that many bathrooms and toilets. And I say, yeah, but it's a big house. I want 5 bathrooms and I want toilets around the place. Well, that's inefficient. Well, that's what I want if I'm spending 3-4 million on a house, right? So, it doesn't have to be logical. It has to just be what the acquirer wants to spend money on.
The key thing about this business, and I know you're 100% right in exactly what you're saying. The key thing about this business was they went from, like, I think it was about 80 organizational chart to about 120 on the organizational chart. They were acquired for a large amount of money, and then shortly after they were acquired, their team dropped to, like, there was redundancies, and the team drops to 70 because they realized when they bring in all these other parts of the business, they didn't even need them anyway. So all I'm saying is, like, I understand. Go back to the British military example. 2-person scout team, 4-person fire team, 8-person section, 30, 40-person platoon. Next size up is a company. Right. So big businesses, they want to buy platoons and up. Now they'll jump between those. They very rarely want to buy a section. They don't want to buy a fire team, right? Anyway, that's only thing number one. Number one is the team, but normally they want at least 30 people for it to feel like a proper acquisition. Number 2 is the proprietary assets. So proprietary assets is your intellectual property, software that you've developed, media that you've developed. So if I was looking at your business and I said, okay, this business comes with 100 episodes of a podcast, they've got all these posters, they've got checklists, they've got internal software that they've developed that they use, they've got a whole system and a process for doing the work, right? So that's proprietary intellectual property, media, software that exists. So essentially, number 1 is the team, number 2 is the proprietary assets. Number 3 is predictable recurring revenues that my CFO can model and easily see that this has predictable recurring revenues. So the way your contracts are set up. So a simple little change, like if you charge 25 grand for a cleanup and that's it, right? Then the CFO says, well, that is a 25 grand cleanup. Lumpy cash business.
Right? And now if you said we charge $1,000 a month, now you might say, well, that's ridiculous. It needs to be 25 months to get 25 grand. Yes, but the CFO likes that business better because it models better.
Yeah.
Right? If I have $1,000 a month times 1,000 customers, now I've got $1 million a month.
Yeah. So and you can sell predictable revenue easier, can't you?
Much higher multiples.
Yeah.
So rather than a sales business where the revenue doesn't stack, you want a recurring revenue model business that stacks. And what I mean by that is a 25 grand sale normally has to have a start, middle, and completion, and then a new sale is made. Revenue that stacks is that we sell contracts and we just look after those contracts. 1,000 people at 1,000 a month is the million a month business. That sells for way more than a $12 million project business. So if you've got a project model business that's doing 12 million, it might sell for 12 million, right? 1 times revenue. You've got $1 million a month of recurring revenue on open-ended contracts, might sell for 36 million, might sell for 48 million, might sell for 60 million, depending on how much the software is doing the work versus the people.
And that is why Daniel Priestley is the gift that keeps on giving in the podcast space. I really appreciate your time. And obviously, look, I took a bit longer today than what we should have done in the allotted time, but I really appreciate it. And it was a real good deep dive for everyone. And guys, I want you to go like I said, 2 of the key books of Daniel's that really made an impact on my life was Oversubscribed and Key Person of Influence. I think you should read both of those books if you've got the chance, and you can get them up. You can just go on Amazon. You'll find them. They are really impactful, especially for a lot of people that are starting out as well and want to build themselves into that key person of influence. But Daniel, if there's one key bit of 1% advice that can move everyone in this audience forward before we leave this podcast today, and you got to leave the planet, check out. You can't leave anything else, but you just leave these key words of wisdom. What would it be?
This is the greatest time in the world to be an entrepreneur. This is it. This is the magic moment. There's never been a better time, ever. Right? There's more money available. There's more amazing people available to join teams. There's more customers available in global markets. There's more technology that's plug and play. There's more of everything. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. This time in history to be alive and an entrepreneur and having fun and embracing life and having fun with life. Get out there and have fun with life. Turn off the news, turn off the negative media, get rid of all of the stuff that is giving you a negative view of the world or relationships, and get out there and have fun with life and watch how many great things show up. Because this is, for whatever reason, you were born at the perfect moment in history to be alive right now. And you would not want to trade it for anything. You wouldn't want to be alive at any other time in history. This is the best.
Love it. I love it. And again, thank you so much for your time. And guys, do me a solid favor. Share this with a friend. Share this episode with a friend. And if you can, jump over to Apple and leave us a review, or Spotify and leave us a rating. That really helps push this thing further forward. And if you could share it with as many people as possible, also that helps massively. Much love. Guys, do me a solid favor. Drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.